Okay, let's take a look at activity 1. So what I'll do is I'll give you some advice in terms of setting the question up. Then it'd be a good idea perhaps for you to pause the presentation, have a think about your answer, select your answer, and then you can listen back to my debrief to make sure that you've understood the question and got the correct answer. So in this particular question then, it deals with an employee called Gurjeet. So Gurjeet's recently started a job and they've received a letter, they've got a handbook, they've been for an interview, they've had some conversations at the interview, and your requirement is laid out here. Which of the following terms governing the contract between Gurjeet and his employer are present? So you have to work through the little sort of scenario and ask yourself, are there any express terms? Are there any implied terms by statute? Or are there any implied terms by custom? And you'll either find one of these, two of these, or all three of them are present. So say, have a read through this, have a think about it, select your answer, and then you can listen to the debrief just to make sure you've got the correct solution. Okay, so let's see what terms we can find in Gurjeet's job here. So first of all, before starting work, Gurjeet receives a letter confirming the job offer, including details such as working hours, etc., and a handbook. So clearly what we're going to find there are the express terms. So there are some terms that have been agreed face-to-face between the two parties. So during the job interview, Gurjeet was warned there is a long-standing tradition in the industry that any losses caused due to poor workmanship are deducted from employee pay. And what we've got here is a long-standing tradition, so that's a really good example there of a term implied by custom. So the final question is then, do you think there are any terms implied by statutes that regulate the employment relationship? And the answer is yes. So there are lots of pieces of legislation that affect you in the workplace, like for example the Minimum Wage Act, all sorts of anti-discriminatory legislation under the Equalities Act, but also things like the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. So although they aren't mentioned here, it's pretty much common knowledge that there's an awful lot of legislation that affects you and typically protects you in the workplace. So on that basis there, we could say the correct answer option is going to be D, because there are express terms, implied terms by statute, and implied terms by custom present here.